Hi there. Here we are, day 23. Cold day in Vancouver, broke all kinds of records. It's going to go down to 10 below zero, which is very cold for Vancouver. It's not very cold for the rest of Canada, but we're not used to it here. We're used to warmer weather and rain. Quite fitting though, because it was the first day of activity at the Olympics. I saw some reports, news reports that the Canadian athletes are very, very happy with the whole setup, with their accommodation, with the proximity of all the events to where they're staying. The venue is spectacular. They're just absolutely tickled pink, which is nice to hear because typically the journalists arrive first and they do a lot of complaining. We had the same here in Vancouver for our Winter Olympics. We had a bunch of journalists, especially from the UK, where they love to do a lot of griping and complaining, and they had nothing but complaints. But in the end, Vancouver had a very good Olympics, and I'm hoping that the same will be the case at Sochi. Of course, I hope Canada wins a good number of medals, but even without that, I just hope it's a very good event and that a lot of people from a lot of different countries get together and enjoy each other's company. In a way, I'd like to be there, practice my Russian, and so forth. Now, getting back to Korean. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a Korean tutor, and I did very poorly in my own mind, at least. I did much worse than when I spoke with Joo Hyun. And in a way, I wasn't ready for it. I had forgotten that I even had the discussion. I was busily reading through some articles on my computer at Link, and I got Skyped, and so I spoke for half an hour. And it sort of made me realize that, to get to where you can speak well, it takes time. But the way I'm going to get there is not by speaking more, speaking every day. I'll just repeating my mistakes. Granted, I get a report with my mistakes and I review them. But I realized that I've got to sort of redouble my efforts in terms of my listening and reading. And so I went to, and what I have to do is I have to focus on those kinds of phrases that I have trouble with when I speak. And so speaking a couple of times a week identifies some of those areas where I have problems. So then when I read on Link, I save phrases that represent those kinds of constructions. It might be the past tense. It might be what in English we would call a relative clause, the house which is on the hill kind of thing, how they say that in Korea, some other things. So I go through text and I highlight phrases and sometimes words, and I tag them. I tag them for condition, like if it's an if type phrase, I call that condition. That's the tag I put on it. It might be tagged for purpose, in order to kind of thing. It might be tagged for because, or it's variations of since, because, therefore kind of thing, like the reason why. So I tag all of these so that I can then review them as a group. And in a way, I call this mining the text. So I have a text. I read through it. I listen to it. And particularly now, because I got these two audio books from Talk to Me in Korean, Hyunwoo Sun's audiobook, and particularly Hyojin's audiobook, which I'm really enjoying. And it's a lot easier. There's not that many new words. So I can really focus on the patterns and the structures, read it carefully, save these patterns and structures so that I can review them later on. So I think this mining activity, because all of this is helping you to notice. And then I notice when I listen to that same text after I have read it and mined it and highlighted and tagged certain key phrases and so forth, then I listen to it again, I notice it. So that slowly I'm making my brain accustomed to these different structures, which are quite different in Korean from English, but even different from Japanese. And I have a tendency to look for the Japanese pathway, and the brain makes that Japanese connection, whereas I have to condition my brain to make that Korean connection. So I'm doing more and more mining. So I guess today I didn't really, I had to go to the office again. I will be doing some more, getting out with my iPhone and leveling up, as some people call it, or doing some other events to make it a little more interesting. People get tired of just looking at me here in my office. But today, and I should point out that in the material that I bought at Talk to Me in Korean, I also downloaded sort of a grammar, level 3 grammar. It's about 70 or 80 pages of some grammar notes with a bunch of explanations. And that was about an hour and a half to skim through that. That's not going to get me too far. On the other hand, if I can spend some hours mining this content and continue to mine content and save phrases and words and tag them and then review them, I think that in the long run is going to be a better way, combining that with the continuing ongoing listening and reading, to get my level up. As I say, I'm not going to get better at speaking just by speaking. I have to enrich my knowledge, my basic vocabulary and sense of the language, so that then I go back and I then speak and I speak better. That's all for today. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. Bye for now.